Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, sorry I'm a little bit later than I normally am in the morning. Some of my flights were a bit pushed around and delayed last night getting back to Chicago, so I finally rolled in about 3 a.m. and I was not very kind to my alarm clock when it went off, so a little bit later than I wanted to be, but I want to show you a picture I took last night in Dallas, one of my flying home, and the sunset was incredible. Now, my camera, probably because I still have a really old iPhone, but it's not doing this justice as to just how bad the air quality was in the central United States. And a lot of that wildfire smoke that was in the central U.S. was at the expense of the exceptional heat that has been up the West Coast, specifically into Washington and British Columbia, which we've been talking about all week. But I wanted to show you just what it looked like. This was last night's satellite data. Just as the sun was coming to set here across the East Coast, you can see just how much wildfire smoke from British Columbia and from the fires in the Northwest had kind of fallen and gotten squeezed right through this area where the main frontal boundary is, and then the southwest monsoon is coming on board. Some of the cloud cover you see here is also from the tropical system we mentioned earlier in the week, Lorena, that was coming through this area as well. We'll take a look at that moisture in a few moments. But I purposefully said fallen. A lot of this smoke was very near the ground, and it even is early this morning in this particular region. Now, a couple of other things to point out on this satellite animation. In addition to all of that wildfire smoke, we are going to be watching a sizable shot of cold air coming into this region, and freeze watches have been posted for parts of North Dakota. And earlier this week, they did have significant frost in this area, which I've seen some pictures of some frosted over beans. The other thing is the storms that were going through parts of North Carolina yesterday. Pretty nasty storms in through this area, numerous reports of severe winds. But I want to show you the kind of source region of a lot of this smoke. If you go up to British Columbia, okay, I'm going to go backwards here a little bit. Let's take you all the way back to 2 days ago. After setting new records for heat in British Columbia, dealing with that blocked pattern we've been now talking about, feels like for a couple of weeks, you can see just a tremendous amount of wildfire smoke coming out, going into Alberta, and then just snaking its way along the cold front all the way into the central United States. Now, as you can imagine, the forecast for the smoke, now I'm going to show you vertically integrated. I know that Matt yesterday showed you near ground, but I wanted to kind of see the whole picture of the flow of the atmosphere. We're not going to be able to get rid of this in the very near term in the Pacific Northwest, so terrible air quality issues here. But you can see the extent of that next cold front swiping through the central United States out of the eastern Canadian prairie. We have to have another discussion here about just how cold things are going to get with that. So let's go ahead and have a look at our all hazards weather map. There is the freeze watch I mentioned. We've got a lot of air quality issues here, and we're going to continue to watch these air quality issues show up across the rest of the country as time goes forward. You know, when we think about what's going on with that freeze watch, I did bring this up just to kind of make some sense here. This is out of Bismarck, North Dakota. Their freeze watch is because they're going to have sub-freezing temperatures as low as 30 degrees that could last for a couple of hours. And that's the concern with this next big push of really cold air that's coming through. So on the maps that I create that just look for where that is a possibility, this is what we're seeing now in our near-term frost risk. A lot of it's going to be in this part of Montana and the western side of North Dakota that we're expecting to get these pretty chilly temperatures. Using the National Digital Forecast Database, which is what I just showed you, this is Saturday morning's lows. And we do need to see a change in the west. And I have one coming. The block is breaking. I'll show you why and how in a moment. But in the meantime, while it stays, okay, in the North Pacific, these shots of cold air are pretty serious. While it's quite hot closer to that ridge. And that's the pattern we've been in now for a while. So Saturday morning's lows are pretty chilly. So if you're going to a Friday night football game in this area, be prepared. And also remember, we got some stronger winds that are coming through today with that front into this area. But watch the change. This is Saturday into Sunday morning. Still quite cool. Monday. Now take a look. By Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, these minimum low temperatures rebound in a major way, such that by late next week, you could see minimum temperatures in the central and northern plains that are going to be as warmer, in some cases even warmer, than the high temperatures we're dealing with right now. And we just have to think about what's driving this pattern change, and does it last, and is it going to flip-flop again? Because there's a lot going on right now in the pattern, because it looks like this. Now, this is amazing. This is mid-level flow. There's the Bering Sea low. There's the big ridge that's just lived on the west coast. That's what's driving all that heat. Here are the deep troughs that continue to just live in the Great Lakes to the Hudson Bay and just drive that colder air along with them. In fact, the trough is the result of the cold air. It's a chicken and the egg kind of thing you have to think through. But what I'm fascinated on this map is this. We have 1, 2, 3 lows underneath this ridge, and then there's a high right here. And that high is critical for where this tropical cyclone, Kiko, is going to go. And that's just the beginning of it. I got to tell you about the Bermuda High in a few moments, and a tropical system here, and also what's going on way over by Japan right now. So have a look at it. This is the latest updated forecast. It's a model blend. Again, Tomerberg's page. Right down there's the link if you ever want to go to this on your own. So what we're looking at is the probability of the hurricane's path. And there's really kind of two solutions to this. Once you get out here farther, 5-6 days from now, there's a northern path, and there's a path that goes right over the Big Island and continues in this direction. And as we think it through, understand that it will be weakening as it approaches Hawaii, but it will likely still be able to maintain hurricane strength in the latest National Hurricane Center forecast is for at 96 hours from now. So that's 4 days. We are expecting this to still maintain 75 mile an hour winds, and at 5 days, 50 mile an hour winds. Now, this is the National Hurricane Center's forecast that's being issued here. And so it's just, make the point that they are the best in the business. So this is what I'm going to trust most over, some of the model variations that we can see. But so Hawaii, I'll be honest with you, most times when this happens, what we get is some of the most epic videos of waves that crash into the islands here, and folks surf on it. So there's a lot of people that do get kind of excited about this. But remember, in recent years, we have had hurricane force winds that have driven huge wildfire events. And so I'm quite concerned about the winds that will be coming with this system and the risk that they can pose. Now, speaking of those winds, I took earth.nullschool.net, which, when you look at this, just to let you know, this is the GFS forecast of the wind field. So notice the hurricane's going north, right? But it's this feature up here that we got to pay attention to as well, because that is actually the remnants of a hurricane that came through, or a tropical system, I should say, that started here, went up by Japan. And if you look at it right now, it's here. I didn't look up the pronunciation guide, I'm sorry, but we expect it over the next 10 days to be pushing its way, toward the Aleutian Islands. And it's going to be a part of what we see later in next week, being a deep low that is going to disrupt what has been a near permanent ridge that's lived over the West Coast. I think it can completely flip that pattern around. Now, there's also another feature. So if we slide back over here, have a look. This is the wind field in the Atlantic at that time. And there's going to be a lot of question about this next system we're investigating as to whether or not it has a chance of doing that, or is it going to get pulled around the Bermuda High, which is way over here, again, closer to the Azores, and steered out to open ocean by maybe a front like the one that you see right here. So the oceans right now are, I think, the biggest component, what's happening across the oceans to what we're expecting to see. So let's have a look at the newest model forecast for Invest 91L. That's what it's being called. If you have a look, the model spread is large, so we don't have a lot of confidence in where this is going to go yet. And some models have just bitten into this developing quickly, and others have really not. So for example, take a look. This is just a 10-day forecast from the European Ensemble, trying to predict where that center of low pressure is going to go. And the European model, for the most part, is trying to take whatever it is and just keep it out here. See that? But there's not even much coherence in the run-to-run, or the ensemble member to ensemble member forecast of this. In fact, the European model is more excited about the wave that follows it right there developing. See it at the very end of that animation. So it's odd just to go out and look at it and go, okay, well, you look out there the next 7 days and beyond, and do you notice it's this wave, watch right here, that has the best chances. What's also important to note is, remember, there is a stalled out frontal boundary here, and we could watch the spin up of a low just off the coast, roll just along the coast, not expecting much development out of it, but there's another tropical feature there. So that's all in the European model. What's the GFS think? Well, I want to show you something kind of neat here. And this is kind of the buyer beware mentality when you're getting your weather forecast information from someone that drives hype on Facebook and doesn't have any credentials. Take a look. This is the GFS forecast from the 0Z model. All right, we're watching that guy right there. As we play this forward, it goes right over this part of the Lesser Antilles and goes straight, almost right between, the island of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. And by the time we get out there to Tuesday, September 16th to the 17th, we're worried about this thing hitting Florida if you use that model run. And you better believe it, there's a lot of people that want your eyeballs, and so they're going to ask you to click on a map that shows a mega hurricane hitting like Lake Okeechobee, right? That was the 0Z run. Watch this. The 6Z run is also out now in the GFS. And have a look. There it is, coming close to the Lesser Antilles here, and makes a hard turn because they have the Bermuda High in the 6Z run way over here. And look at the length and size of that front. So it's gonna have to turn. It's not gonna be able to get through that, and the models just have it staying out to open ocean, even missing Bermuda to the east. So what a difference, right? Model run to model run, and that's why I think uncertainty is very, very high with this particular system right now. Now I bring all of this up because there are a lot of folks that not only in the last 2 weeks, but even in the last month. Take a look at the last month here. I've heard you loud and clear. There's a big section. Let's go back to that 14-day map. There are folks that would love it if now, right away, we could get something that comes up the Mississippi Valley to deliver rainfall. Sometimes hurricanes can do that. It is so dry in this area, so dry in the eastern Corn Belt, eastern Great Lakes. And then after, the precipitation patterns in North Carolina, Virginia this year they have flip-flopped so almost violently, right? From flooding to just prolonged stretches of nothing. And we're in one of those prolonged stretches of nothing that goes all the way into the Northeast, which has still been deeper in drought. And so this is an incredible map to look at the range of precipitation. So again, here's that 30-day. Just have a good look at it. And to just show you how dry it has been in this section of the Mid-South, I'm going to go back to a 60-day map. Memphis is at 40%, 44% in the last 2 months. We've got very dry conditions in the Four Corner states. We've had the marine stratocumulus layer that has lived over the coast of California for most of this time frame. And the drought that's in the Northeast is largely going untalked about by much of the rest of the country, but it's deepening here as well. And if you look at the newest drought monitor, which is over there on the left, now it is starting to show up much more clearly how widespread these dry conditions have been in the key areas I just mentioned. In the last 4 weeks, we've seen up to a 3-class degradation in the drought that's in the Mid-South all the way up toward Maine. And this is going to be an ongoing story as we get into this fall time frame. Current soil moisture maps down to 40 centimeters or 16 inches show that some of our major river systems, continue to be seeing the soil moisture quite low. I'm talking about a lot of the Missouri Basin, and I'm also looking here at part of the Ohio and the Mississippi, just as a few. But boy, this Atlantic coastal plain up to the this part of the Mid-Atlantic, very, very dry, and so is Vermont, New Hampshire, and getting up into Maine as well, just to kind of show you a few points here. When we look back since the beginning of August, this is the precipitation ranks. And again, that area just kind of jumps out once again as being exceptionally dry. And even though we have seen monsoonal moisture, I was just yesterday with Sean Haney, we were down here together, and no, we weren't here. We were in Omaha, but he lives in Phoenix part of the year. He was talking about, we've been getting some storms lately in Arizona. The monsoon's been going, but it's, still overall a pretty dry picture. And he was in that haboob that happened, what was that, 10 days ago or so. So let's take this and try to figure out what's next. So here is the radar animation from last night into today. You can see the deep low moving through the Great Lakes, the rain this morning through Kansas and Oklahoma, and a very interesting complex of storms that just slid down out of Utah, hitting parts of Nevada, getting into Arizona. Watch them come right down through here. You can also see when this animation restarts, the severe storms that went through here. They are coming out of eastern Tennessee into parts of North Carolina last night. And if your eye is just drawn to all the flickering that's going on down here across the south, we have a pretty strong temperature inversion early this morning that gives you some beam ducting. So you can start to see a whole lot more near surface features. In fact, that wave of like the blues and greens that goes across is a good indicator of how strong the inversion was overnight. And I think what you're seeing a lot here are flashes from cell phone towers. That's what you're seeing with some of these weird things. Now, when you look at your phone app radar, all of this is removed. We get rid of that to not add confusion to what you're seeing. But I wanted to kind of point a couple of those features out. Today's severe weather risk, definitely going to be watching parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, getting right up here into this part of West Virginia and Ohio, and tomorrow more of that mid-Atlantic area. Is there chances for heavy rain out of this? Possibly, but it's not widespread soaking rain. Southwest monsoon still going in this setup, though. Let's go and have a look at it with the high-res NAM. This is going to start off at 7 a.m. this morning and play through this afternoon. And right in through here along the frontal boundary is where we're going to keep an eye on late today for the risk of those severe storms. There will continue to be larger storms in the western states, and you can see on the backside more widespread cloudiness and rainfall that could stretch through this area. So I'm watching this part of Missouri carefully. This is one of our areas that's deep in drought. We need to see if we can get some of that moisture in. Playing it forward into tonight, getting into Saturday morning. This is now getting through Saturday midday. There is some risk of this coalescing into a line of storms that moves through Tennessee. I would beg for this to happen, given how dry it is coming over, Memphis, just as an example, and getting into Kentucky and Tennessee. They need this rain. And as I mentioned, along that decaying frontal boundary, take a look right here, just off the southeast coast. The NAM is trying to spin up a little area of low pressure, likely not going to, it may not even come close to, like Cape Hatteras. Right. Yeah, I'm kind of keeping an eye on it right there by the time we get into early Sunday morning. But that's our near-term kind of storm threat. Bigger picture is this. Let's get back to that. Because of what's coming out of Japan that could end up here, we seem to be taking a trough feature and having it start in the Gulf of Alaska and extend into the southwest. So what's gone in this forecast? The deep troughs that have lived here for the last few weeks. So now we get this highly amplified pattern that seems to be moving with a bullseye of a ridge over parts of Canada. We've even got some interesting stuff going on in Europe. A much accelerated jet coming across Europe, but then take a look at this part of Russia just all blocked up as well. So with that being the overall picture, this is what the next 14 days looks like. And my biggest concern is, yes, I just showed you rain trying to come through this area, but overall, the European ensemble has got this region very dry. You can just tell by the precipitation pattern that the Bermuda High is reluctant to come back, because this is where it's leaving fronts, and this is where the periphery of the Bermuda High is taking any sort of tropical system, and therefore we're not opening the Gulf to moisture. But the Northwest has moisture. We see better storms here, and you're saying, why? Well, we're dipping troughs into this area, which is going to allow that to happen. And this, by the way, is how the European model is handling the remnants of Lorena down there. GFS looks like this. It's got a little bit better pull of the moisture coming into the Four Corners states, but that same corridor is very dry, and it too is trying to keep any would-be tropical system out while delivering a trough into the Northwest. So you see how it's quite clear what the pattern's doing according to the models and their outcomes here. So this is a done deal. Ready? This is Friday, getting into the weekend, playing into early next week. There they are. Deeper troughs here and here. Now, when we were watching the forecasts on Wednesday and Thursday, this trough in some of the models was exceptional. And there were forecasts for the Midwest. I'll just kind of highlight an area in here where we saw the models trying to bring in triple-digit heat. We were cautious on it because it just seemed a little bit outlandish to see that. But overall, that is a pattern change. Look what we have here now. So we've now got flow like that, and this is going to return some warmth, but unfortunately not going to be returning moisture because of where the Bermuda High is. So I've been working on a couple things while I was stranded and on the plane. I took the county overlay off on the bigger maps, and I added just numbers to make it look a little better. And as soon as I get this finished, I'll push it to the site. But this is the European models forecast through the weekend. So take a look. Need this badly in this area. And there's that would-be tropical system staying offshore. There's what's left of Lorena according to the European. Let's go into next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Let's go all out to next Friday. This is our drought building area. That's just one of them, to be honest with you. Once we see out here by next Friday into Saturday and Sunday, take a look at Washington, British Columbia. Here, there is that when that trough comes in, the second one actually. But I can take this all the way out to the end of the forecast time period. And I get to choose who gets a number because I build the maps. I've got one over my house in Muhammad at 0.0 inches. So this is through September 19th. Rapid dry down. Better chances of rainfall coming through the upper Midwest. Same for New Mexico and parts of Texas. Take a look at these numbers here. But there's a lot of places that have been dry that continue to stay dry. So by the way, my regional maps are going to look something like this. So I just picked the Midwest just as an example. I put the counties back on there, so we're all good. And we can now see the overlays. So this is all coming. Just takes a while to develop and work out all the kinks and bugs and try to make it fast for you. But wow, look at that. Okay, probability-wise, staying under a half inch for the next 10 days. 90% chance or better where we see the deepest reds. In fact, if we flip this down to staying under a tenth of an inch, there's a 50 to 70% chance here and down here and in Southern California that we stay there. Who's wet in this pattern? Well, this is the probability going over an inch in the next 10 days. And it's not widespread, meaning we got a lot of dryness in this. But that week 2 pattern, all of the models look the same for the most part. See this? Western trough, better chances of rain. See it? Let's blow up the European just to get an idea. That's week 2. Now, I kind of skipped over the rest of a temperature discussion, which we did about 10 minutes ago. But since August 21st, look at these ranks. And when this pattern breaks down, all of this goes with it. We're going to flip this whole thing, bringing warmth back into this part of the country and cooling the West off. But there's no doubt as to the big reasons why those wildfires came on in such a hurry, in the last 15 days. And it's this exceptional heat under that block pattern. Well, have a look. Here is how the next 5 days pans out. Watch day 5 through 10. There's the presence of those troughs. You can see the ridge anchored in northern Canada. Look at the warmth that spreads back into the plains all the way to the Mississippi Valley. The cooler weather's trying to exit east. And by the time we get to day 10 through 15, we're in that new regime of the pattern. Now, as we stretch this out, I'm going to show you a couple things here, and then we'll go from this. We will be adding some new features that give you some long-range forecast data on the site you can look at any time. But I do want to point out, if you go to your local weather, let's see, I was in Morris, Illinois. And while I was up there earlier this week, some of the forecast models out there in the 15-day temperature range were trying way up here for 100-degree weather, next Monday, Tuesday. They backed off. But I want to show you something. What I love about this is that you can get, all 3 of the models put together. So, for example, the GFS on September 12th has a high of 57, whereas the other models have a high of 80 and 81, 82. So look at the spread. This is a useful thing. And last night, Matt was working on updating the precipitation map. Many of you requested that we don't make it so you click a button, but you can see them stacked. So for Morris, just as an example, the European model is not bringing in rain all the way till not just next Monday, but the Monday following. The GFS a little more generous, trying midweek next week. The artificial intelligence is nothing until you get out here to the 19th, and the NBM has nothing as well. So we're making some changes based on your comments and suggestions. So we appreciate that. All right, now on to finish this up. I think we still have a narrative that once you get past the peak of the hurricane season, which is the 15th, this time period will likely start to open up significantly for tropical activity. And that is the 15th of September through like the 15th of October. That is an important signal to be watching right here. The other thing is the MJO kind of sliding its way back over to the Indian Ocean, I think is going to inform all of our longer range forecasts. And so here they are, real quick, 3 of them. That's this is the GFS. And its forecast from September 7 to October 7. It's got the same kind of picture we just talked about. Here is the European weeklies. Again, September 7 to October 7. Very dry, lower Mississippi Basin. If this verifies and there is no tropical system and no return of the Bermuda High, we have another unfortunate story for the Mississippi River. Now, Northwest, you're getting it early. But there's another model I can show you. It's from Canada. They have the CMC weeklies. They're also dry in similar areas, but they're much more aggressive on the moisture coming into the Northwest in this pattern. Later today, since it's the 5th, it'll be much later today, the new European seasonal forecast will come out. We'll talk about it on Monday. But I'm going to wrap this all up with a couple of important points. In the last week, we have seen, even though it's still very hot in terms of ocean temperatures, we've seen some cooling in the North Pacific. And that is going to be very critical to understanding the early fall weather patterns for North America. I'll talk more about it next week, okay? But we still have a La Nina cooking, and that's going to be an important factor as well. Who's watching it probably closer than the United States is South America. And if you look out over the next 10 to 15 days, there's a lot of heavy rain in southern Brazil, possibly coming back into Buenos Aires, over toward Cordoba, into Argentina. But there are still no early signs of life from the monsoon, which means that even though planting is now going in earnest, I think they're going to have to wait on better rainfall coming into that area. In the longer range forecast, it's one of these things where you just say, well, pick whichever narrative you want. If you're saying delay on dryness, then go after the European. No. The GFS. September 9 to October 9, it's not bringing in an early monsoonal circulation here. It's certainly bringing in wetter conditions over toward Minas Gerais over here. Minas Gerais, dang it. Someone helped me pronounce that a while ago. I'm still screwing it up. But you go, all right, well, what's the European Weekly doing? It's saying Mato Grosso is going to go after this fast. And I'm just going to tell you, until this high pressure cell sets up and really delivers flow like this, I will just tell you to side with the drier models. Okay? That's it. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Enjoy it. Be safe. And we'll talk on Monday. Thanks.